I'm going to talk about A Shadow Intelligence, the novel I've just published, which is the first in a series featuring Elliot Kane, who works for MI6. I'd written a few detective novels before that, set in contemporary London, and enjoyed that hugely to explore the tangle of corruption within London. But there's bigger corruption going on a global scale, and I really wanted a vehicle for diving into that. And a character who got access to stories, to what's going on behind the stories you see in the news that other people wouldn't have access to. And that led me into the intelligence services for obvious reasons. Like so many people, I'm fascinated by them, by secrets, because we're not allowed to know what they're up to. It trickles out. And I was very keen on writing a contemporary spy novel because we're in such a fascinating geopolitical moment. Any illusion of a post-Cold War peace has shattered. There's so many multiple players now. Technology amplifies everything to such an extent, not just the powers of surveillance, but now we're increasingly aware of the psychological operations online. And this struck me as a really interesting moment to write a spy novel. And I wanted someone who could lead us into that, someone from a background like a lot of spies that's actually more interested in languages and culture, but has been asked to deploy those skills and talents for the sake of his nation and the stratagems it's up to. One of the most interesting things about writing A Shadow Intelligence was travelling to Kazakhstan, where I decided I wanted to set it, partly because I knew very little about the place, which seemed amazing as it's one of the biggest countries in the world, and it extends the length of Russia from the Caucasus to China, former Soviet Union, Islamic but secular Islam, suspended halfway between a dictatorship still run by the guy who was running it when it was part of the Soviet Union, and a democratic modernism that's kind of desperately trying to break through. Travelling there was amazing. I travelled there in the middle of summer. One of the things it's known for is it has the greatest extremes of temperature of anywhere in the world. Incredibly hot summers, incredibly cold winters. The novel's set in winter, so I had to do a bit of imagining. But the capital, the new capital, Astana, created out of nothing by Nazarbayev, the former president, who has a huge amount of oil money, and huge ambitions for the independence of his country. So he essentially chose a fairly random location, and a capital city appeared, gleaming skyscrapers and shopping malls. Not a huge amount of people yet, which gives it that very eerie feel that I wanted to capture in the novel. That was the most interesting geographical aspect to research, but I was also just researching contemporary espionage, and especially getting fascinated by how much of it is now privatized. In the 90s and noughties, a huge amount of spies left the state intelligence services, set up their own companies, employing other former employees of MI6, the CIA, NSA, etc., and do very well, as far as I can tell, often making money off the same companies that used to be helped by MI6 and the CIA, and still are, but can now dictate their requirements directly. And it creates this layer of mystery. What exactly is their relationship to the traditional spies? What exactly is their role in foreign policy? Where can they operate? When you connect it to the huge private military contractors that are out there that made billions during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, you suddenly start seeing this parallel militarized realm there for hire, for the highest bidder, which I think is going to have huge consequences for the decades ahead. Okay, I'm going to read an extract from a few chapters into Shadow Intelligence. Elliot, the main character, has received an encrypted file over the internet. He doesn't know exactly who it's from, but he's downloaded it, decrypted it, and what he gets is some video footage. I downloaded the file, ran it through decrypting software. From the opening frame, it looked like CCTV or a spy cam, black and white, wide-angle lens high on a wall. The room was plush, white furniture, glass coffee table. A suited man stood alone at the window, turned so that his face was obscured. I clicked play. No audio. There was a briefcase on the glass coffee table, a decanter, a heavy-looking square ashtray. The man browsed a bookcase at the back, checked his watch. 50 seconds in, he turned, poured a drink, and he saw his face for the first time. I hit pause. Then I studied the room, then I enlarged the image to see the face more clearly. It was me. I was clean-shaven, smart, in a suit similar to ones I owned, but not exact. I stood in a room I'd never been in. It was my face, my physicality. I hit play, watched myself sit on the sofa, pick up cigarettes, change my mind and put them down. At 1 minute 45 seconds, another man entered. He looked Central Asian, dark hair swept in a heavy fringe, holding a phone. The man said something, locked the case but left it lying on the coffee table. I stood up, shook his hand and we left the room together. A second later the clip ended. The footage lasted 2 minutes 25 seconds in total. I remember most rooms, let alone most individuals I've shared them with. I'd never been in that room or met that man. I looked more closely at the shadows cast by objects, the movement of faces and hands, light reflections and skin texture. Deepfakes, they were called. Human image synthesis. Computer-generated images were being used in propaganda all the time now. Russia's Internet Research Agency generated social media content using politicians' faces superimposed on actors' bodies. It had employed them in online influence operations, mostly domestic politics. You got some sophisticated stuff from Turkey on behalf of the Justice and Development Party, people making speeches they never made, etc. Otherwise it was used for faking celebrity porn. Maybe there were plenty of unknown figures being electronically manipulated as well, we just didn't pick them up. I watched some deepfake porn posted online, then some of the political videos, and wondered how many teams were currently producing it. Finally I watched the clip again. Was the other man real? Who exactly had I met in this digitised fantasy? We left the room together. A triangle of light fanned out across the floor. 2 shadows crossed it, then both were gone.